It made me understand why I was here, and everybody's here for the sole purpose of discovering why they are individually here. So my theory and the work that I've been doing is that as a soul, you're on recycle button, that you come backwards and forwards and you learn things.
Hello everyone, my guest today, I'm so thrilled to say, is Anne Bayford, who has a remarkable near-death experience to share with us today. So I'm just going to give you a small little bio because I want to make sure that she can tell her story in her own words, but to give you a little peek, she is a multi-faceted medium, past life practitioner and trance channeler specializing in soul auditing, which means helping people know where they are on their own soul journey and coaching them towards what they're here to do through soul coaching and working with her team of experts at Odyssey, the platform. Anne channeled information to create Odyssey, the platform, and is now one of the co-founders. Odyssey has become a successful private spiritual well-being worldwide practice. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
I was
so excited.
I was so excited that you were going to be here. I saw you on another show, and I always love to promote other shows, and I always mess this up. Next Level Soul with Alex?
That was one of them. Yes, I've been on others, but yes, that's one of them.
Yes, and you are just such a joy, such a great sense of humor, such a deep soul, and you have so much to teach us with who you are and what you've experienced. So, like I said, you have this remarkable near-death experience, but you also have always, to my understanding, had this connection with the other side. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah, from childhood. Yeah, it came in at a very, very young age. I thought I was going crazy, absolutely thought I was going crazy. And I thought I was imagining hearing the voices of animals talking to me. And well, at the time, I didn't think I was crazy as a child. When I heard the voices or saw people walking around, I thought everyone saw that, everyone could hear animals talking. And, you know, when you get to become a little bit older and you're at school and then, you know, you're too frightened to mention anything because other people are looking at you and judging you. I think it's a difficult time anyway when you're going through schools. And then, yeah, then I started realizing that, well, I started thinking I maybe might be a little bit different. And you know what humans are like. Some of us do not like to be different. Now, as a woman of 55, I want to be different. I'm quite happy to be different. Thank you very much.
Yeah. It takes a while to really embrace who we are, but I can't imagine as a young child, at any age in childhood, adolescence, all we want is to fit in. And here you have this remarkable gift, but it probably didn't always feel like a gift. When it's like, so you're like, what, doesn't everyone else see that person walking across or hear that animal speaking?
Well, yeah, and like, even now, you know, I teach, I have students and clients around the world, and I was saying to my students the other night, I was teaching them about psychic mediumship and stuff, and helping people to develop their own intuitive and psychic skills. And I was saying to them, I literally got woken up this morning. I said to them the other day at 3:30, someone was bending over me and saying, "I was murdered. Can you help me?" And I'm like,
Whoa.
well, hello a minute. 3:30,
Oh.
3:33. Why wake me up at this time? It's inconvenient, please.
Yeah, they have plenty of time on the other side. Could they
You
not have
know?
waited a few hours?
Yeah. Go
But
in my time zone.
that's your life, though. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that happens.
Yeah, and you know, I would say to my students, well, that's not being very professional. You know, you should have an opening and closing hours, which I do. It's a bit like having, well, like a shop window and you have the store is closed or it's open. But the way I see it, like when I work with my team of guides and my, you know, my spirit guides that help with loved ones coming forward, I see it as a very plush hotel lobby now, like the Savoy in London. And so when I'm working, I sort of when I come into my office each day, I sort of sit down, I do my meditation, I goes, okay guys, we're ready to work. And they show me that plush lobby area with individuals. I haven't met them yet, but I see them sitting in comfortable chairs or whatever they're doing. And then I'll say to my guides, okay, I'm ready to work. And then my client appears on the screen as I do Zoom around the world, and then loved one will come in. So it's like almost like a doctor walking into his waiting area. You don't know who they are until you see them. So yes, it's open and closed, you know, closed hours, I'm not working. But sometimes you get the odd soul. You know, when we go into to dreaming at night, sometimes we're quite open and susceptible for individuals to pop in. But this individual knew that I could help them, so woke me up at 3:33, and I said, "Could you come back when I wake up in the morning, please, around about 7:30?" And which they did.
Oh, good. Oh, good. So that person, that soul, respected your boundary.
Yeah, well, they didn't quite read the memo, I don't think, on the other side. So that's where they just popped in. And I said, "Hello, you're new on the other side. I think you need to speak to my gatekeeper and my guides,
Mm.
and they'll tell you." And, you know, spirits on the other side, they often have a joke and they laugh and they sort of, they know me so well. So I
Uh-huh.
sometimes have a conversation with them before I even have a conversation with the clients that sit here with me. But yeah, they know
Oh
now.
God, it's so fascinating. So now, and you don't need to, but now I'm fascinated by this person who said I was murdered and I need your help. Were you able to begin to help, or what do you do with something like that?
Oh gosh, this has happened a number of times. So I actually said, "I don't know how I'm going to help you, but we'll wait and see." And then somebody did reach out by email a couple of days later and said that somebody that they know in this community had been murdered 39 years ago. But because of the energy of those in the community are now looking at, you know, what's going on, you know, what happened to that female that died. So I'm working on that case now. But there has been cases, I can't watch the news, because if I watch the news and someone's been murdered, it pops in straight away, because they know I work with the police. They know I work on big cases. So on the spirit side, it's almost like you're graded. And sorry, one of my guys just said like a diamond, but anyway, like you're graded, and so that they know that's the work I do. I do remote viewing. I do work
Wow.
for different bodies of people, and so yeah, I can go in to have a little look at what items are given to me, and I can feel into the item, and I like to connect with their personality so that I know I've actually got that individual. Because if you
Yes.
imagine we're all like radios, we're picking up on frequencies and bandwidths and FM and AM. I don't know if you have the same there, but as
Mm-hmm.
a radio, I'm having to tune in to find out who this individual is, and to see if I can connect to them. This, not every medium in the world is going to work for every single person out there that's in the world. So you have to go with the person that's going to fit with you. So yeah, so they know on the spirit
Makes
side. So
sense.
if they pop in, they, you know, and I've worked in a few cases where someone's been murdered or a cold case. I've actually, you know, popped into the individual or felt what they felt before. I passed on messages to family members where somebody was shot in the head. It was a big case I was working on, and there was about 6 people that were actually murdered at this particular time, and I was able to communicate with the individual, and I could feel his feelings before he was about to be shot. He had a sort of a sack over his head, and I could feel his feelings. So I
Gosh.
passed it on to his son, the information, and I confirmed some bits and pieces. So, yeah, so I was going to say, so I get the opportunity um, to feel what they're feeling. And there's been cases where somebody had been kicked in the eye socket, and I could taste the blood in my mouth because I'm quite a physical trance medium.
Oh my gosh, Anne.
But what is comforting in the work that I do enjoy is that, and yeah, and I do enjoy it because I know the loved one that's on the other side is no longer in pain. They have passed that through the episode. Now I'm offering the confirmation and clarification to the individual that's come to me. They then have a conversation. I'm in the middle. Sometimes some of the conversations are a little bit,
Hmm.
in some situations, some can be a bit raunchy, um, where a husband or wife is still alive and on planet Earth. This is true.
You're
This
like, I
is
don't want to
so
be in
true.
bed with you guys.
Honestly, oh my God, if only you knew. Honestly, seriously. I mean, I'm going to write a book at some point because this
That's
has
what I'm
to be
sitting
in the
here
book.
thinking. You have so many stories. And sorry, I just got this terrible cough, so I have
Oh,
a lozenge
bless
in my
you.
mouth. So that's a lot of trauma for you to experience. Someone who's got a sack over his head, someone who's gotten kicked in the eye. I mean, someone who's been murdered, and you are feeling it physically.
Yeah.
How do you make sure you don't lose your mind or get re traumatized and over and over and over again?
Yeah. That's brilliant. I love that. Well, I trained originally as a counselor, and as a counselor, we learn to sort of, it's not our stuff, it's our client stuff. But to be honest, I always feel as a counselor, as a therapist, that in a way you have to be able to connect to your client, that you have to understand, you have to empathize to some degree, else you won't be good at your job.
That's
You
right.
have to sort of feel into that, like, put yourself into those shoes to some degree, but also you
Yes.
have to keep your own sanity.
Yes.
So, to be honest, I was asked this recently by a couple of my students, because now they're opening up to the work and they're all empaths and they're finding it quite difficult. But I think for me, because of my traumatic experiences that I've gone through in my own childhood, I've sort of have managed to think that it's okay, we'll get through this. So it's that sort of the British thing of stiff upper lip to some degree, which isn't entirely healthy. But by going through everything I've gone through, being disabled for 4 years after my near-death experience, my first one, my leg was nearly amputated, and the experience I had there, I sort of learned that actually you can achieve anything you want to, and there's always a reason for whatever happens to you in your life. So
Yeah.
when things are really tough, and God, they've been really tough. And even February last year, I had a seizure and I couldn't walk for 14 weeks. I had a brain bleed, a mini stroke. But the way I see it is that actually this is something to stop me in my track, for me to take some time out. I wasn't listening. I knew I was overworking. I was going through a stressful period of separating from my previous partner of 32 years. So I always look at things and say, okay, there's a reason why this is happening right now. I may not know the answer, but I need to take a moment of pause. I need to be kind to myself, and I need to sit with it. So when I'm seeing, clients and these traumatic experiences, I remind myself, this person will get through this. They will get through this. I'm communicating with their loved one. They've passed over to the other side now. They're no longer in any pain.
Right.
I've got this fantastic job. I mean, you can't even call it a job, where I'm helping to communicate the voice for them, like the telephone, of relaying what they're saying, how they're thinking and feeling about their loved ones. And I'm just like, I just feel so privileged that they've chosen me to speak with them and to pass on the message. I mean, I had, oh my God, a beautiful story last week. Sorry, I know I keep going
No,
off, but
please, please, please.
there's this beautiful woman that came on from Australia, a client that had reached out. She'd seen me on one of the YouTube clips, and her daughter I said to her, you've got two daughters? And she said, no, I've only got one. I said, you can't forget the one that passed over. And she said, how do you know? And I said, well, no, I mean, that's what I'm feeling. She's now on the other side. She's grown, and this is how her age, and this is how big she is now. And she's in spirit, but she's around your daughter. I said, there's something about a soft toy that your daughter has named her the same name. That I think the little girl had passed, I think it was 9 days after she was born. So it was really traumatic. And I said to her that she comes and visits, and there's a special Christmas decoration that you put up on your tree. Okay, thank you. I was just checking my guides. I know she won't mind me giving the name of her daughter, because I know she knows that this will help other women who lose their babies. I had 5 miscarriages, so that's why I
Oh
have a
my
lot of individuals
gosh.
that come to me. And I said Belle, and she said, yeah, her name was Belle. So every Christmas, just before Christmas, they put a little bell decoration up, and they remember her. And so she gave the message. So, oh my God, it's like, I feel honored that I
Yes.
can pass that on.
What an incredible honor that is. And so that leads me so perfectly into asking, with your insight, with your guides, with your near death experiences, which I definitely want to make sure we're spending a good amount of time on, do you have insight as to why in this lifetime you have this incredible gift? And does it have bearing to past lives or lineage, or what do you
Yeah.
know about that?
Okay. God, that's an amazing question. I've been asked so many questions by so many individuals, but that is a cracker. I love that one. That's really good.
And so my
Um,
curiosity goes.
I love it. I love it. Um, I have to admit, at first I didn't understand what was going on. I mean, I've mentioned this before, that, when I was hearing all the voices when I was a teenager, I thought I was going crazy. And then trying to understand myself more, I go to the doctor and see the doctor, the regular general practitioner, and I say, I'm hearing voices.
Oh
And the
gosh.
first thing they do is lock you up and say, oh,
Right.
you're either schizophrenic or she's having a spell, where she's going crazy. What a
Mm-hmm.
stupid thing to do. um, and I literally was in a psychiatric hospital for a couple of days, and I was like, well, how the hell do I get out of here? Because they just wanted to drug me up with loads of medication.
Yeah.
And literally I said, how the hell do I get out of here? Now, I didn't know anything about guides at that time. I didn't have any idea, but I know I kept on hearing a voice. And the voice actually said to me, just pretend you can't hear us.
Yeah.
And I was like, am I going crazy hearing that voice? Or do I just pretend I can't hear you? So I said, I can't hear anything. I think I must have just been going through some stress. So there was that when it all started where, as an adult and this happened, and it was a curse. I was like, what is wrong with me? What is going on? And I hadn't really looked at psychic work or intuition. I hadn't really looked at that at all. And that, it was quite a confusing time for me at that time. I was in a quite a toxic relationship. I'd had, I think by that time, 3 miscarriages, and I was down on myself as a woman, and I couldn't do anything normal and natural as a woman. My body was letting me down as I thought. I was about 18 or 19, something like that. So I was really disappointed and everything. And it was only literally through having the near-death experience that it really woke up for me when my children were 5 and 7 years old. And when I started looking into it more, I only found out that through my father, who I'd left when I was 2 years old, that he'd said, well, on our side, he said, I'm a medium, and your grandma is a psychic medium, and she used to do the spiritualist churches. She used to stand on platform, give messages, which I didn't know because the family had split up.
Mm-hmm.
I then found out from my mother that her father was quite psychic, so he used to bet on the horses, and he always used to win, and it wasn't made to be a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And his sister, my great auntie, she was a psychic medium. So on both bloodlines, I have that in my veins, shall I say. And I know past lives, when I've done my past lives, and ideally being a past life practitioner, you can do it on yourself, which is amazing. When I look at that, I can see the many lives I've lived where I used to do this. And back in the day, they would call you a witch. But, it's just apocryphy. It's natural herbs. What we use today, it's very fashionable to use the herbs today. We don't call anyone witches, thank God. I would have been burnt at the stake again in this lifetime.
Again. So you were burned
Again.
at the stake.
And again. And again. So I knew that was part of going back to my past lifetimes as well. And having that near-death experience, the first one, going to the Akashic Records, which I didn't know that was their name at that time. All I know was going off somewhere. I had that, knocked down by the van. I died for about 6 or 7 minutes. It's all documented. And then I was told so much information, which I didn't retain all the information. But every time I have a near-death experience, I've had 3, and then that's not counting February last year.
3. You've had 3.
Yeah, I've had 3. Yeah.
What an extraordinary life. I mean, obviously, they're like, you're not ready. It's not your time. Keep going back.
Yeah, I keep trying to get through to the other side, but it's like, no.
Why do you, I mean, I want to hear the details of the near-death experience, particularly when you go to the Akashic Records and what you learned and what you can remember.
Yeah.
Why do you think you've had 3? I mean, 1 is enough, right?
Yeah, well, I'm a bit stubborn. I just don't listen. I'm one of those.
You want back home.
I'm one of those children that you have at school that if a teacher tells them what to do and you're like, no, I don't believe you. I mean, I was like that from a child. Mum had been married 3 times as well. So we'd had a lifestyle where first dad left when I was 2. Second dad, we were very wealthy, couple of houses in the country, used to ride horses, shooting, fishing and everything. He left. She was a single parent. We literally laid on the floor where we had a mattress, no proper bed, no food. We'd go to bed hungry.
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh.
absolutely terrible. And then she ended up meeting my my final stepdad, Jamaican Rastafarian, that took on 3 white children.
What a
And
life.
yeah, and it's just like, so I don't listen to anybody. I don't believe anybody. So I'm like, I want to prove some things, even the science around, the psychic mediumship. I want to prove things, and that's how I've always been. So when I keep popping over to the other side, the body keeps letting me down, but my soul is like, right, no, you're not ready to go. They keep telling me, come back. You have to finish your task.
Yeah.
And I know that's to help others to have an understanding, a better understanding. It's not freaky or weird to be psychic. It's your natural abilities. It's for all of us to tune in, because instead of watching information from news and telling us what we should do and what we shouldn't do, it's about we should be able to tune in to our own hearts, our own soul, our high consciousness, whatever you want to call it, and that we guide ourselves. And that's part of my mission, is to help others to learn that while you're here, is to tune into your inner voice, so it helps guide you and not keep asking everybody else. So that's my
Yes.
mission. I'm
Okay.
trying.
Extraordinary mission. And you're doing it right now. You're doing it right now. So I'm torn between, okay, near death experience, helping people how to tune in. Those are the two things I want to achieve in this call. Okay.
Okay, fingers crossed.
And fingers crossed to see where we go. Okay.
No pressure.
No pressure whatsoever. Easy peasy. So, because you've had three near death experiences, which one do you feel is most important to share to
Yeah.
that end?
Yeah, I think the most profound one was the very first one. And I always go back to that. I mean, that was 20 years ago now. 21 years ago. Thank you. I was just corrected by one of my guides. That's brilliant. I am off at the moment, but they're still popping in. So 21 years ago, it was March, and it was winter here in the UK. And it was literally, as a mum with two children who are 5 years old and 7 years old, and you have to work because that's just how it goes. And I remember just rushing, getting them into school, and as you are driving, getting stuck in traffic, taking the children, in your head, you're doing all the tasks, juggling everything as a mum, what they're having for dinner tonight, have they done their homework, are they going around to somebody else's house, then you're trying to manage thinking about work, have you done this, have you done that? And of course that was going on in my head.
Right.
And if I'd known at the time, because I really wasn't awoken at that time, as we call it now, spiritual awakening, I was really sort of in my head doing all the things that you do as a mum, working mum. And I gave him a kiss on the forehead, and I was hurrying, and I was like, I hadn't really taken in that moment, moment where you kiss them, you feel your lips on their forehead and how much you love them and you hold them tight. No, I wasn't being in the moment at all. I was still thinking I needed to be somewhere else, and I had a lot of guilt for a long time afterwards. And I said goodbye to them, and I rushed off, and I got the train into work. And at work, I worked for a charity where I organised volunteers to go out to the elderly to read their newspapers for them, or take them for a walk, or just to sit and talk to them. That was the charity I worked for, Age UK in the United Kingdom. And it got to about 2 o'clock, and at that point I had wrote a letter. I was going to post the letter in the post box, and I was leaving work, and again my head was jumbled all over the place, thinking I have to rush, I have to go pick the kids up, I have to make sure I catch the train. And I left the community centre that I worked in, and all the elderly were sitting there. Someone was playing on the piano, somebody was playing bingo, and bye Anne, and everyone was waving to me, see you tomorrow, and yep. And you just take it for granted. And that every day you're going to wake up, and every day you're going to go to work, or every day you're going to feed the kids, or whatever it is. And as I was walking, I was thinking again, I wasn't being present. I was thinking, should I go get the train? Should I go get a newspaper? Should I go post a letter? Should I cross the traffic lights? Again, my head was all over the place. And I remember there was a couple of people at the pedestrian crossing. Someone had pressed the button. There was about 4 or 5 of us. And out of habit, I would look both ways as I'm crossing the road, and I didn't have to because the traffic was different on both sides of the roads. And then I heard a voice, and to me at the time, I sort of really had to think, because in my head I heard a voice saying, everything's going to be okay. And I was like, why am I hearing that? And I'm still crossing the road, and I'm still thinking about the newspaper, and it really punctuated my thoughts. And I was like, God, I recognised the voice, and it was the voice of my grandma, and she had passed when I was 15. She was like my mother to me, because we had a lot of domestic violence growing up as a child. So I often used to stay with my grandparents. My mum had got beaten up quite a lot. One of my dads was an alcoholic. The other one was into drugs. So it was hard. And of course, I was that annoying child that didn't listen to anybody. And so to make sure I was safe, I was sent to my grandparents a lot. So my nan had passed when I was 15, and I heard her voice when I was at this crossroads on this road in London, busy London, and I couldn't understand why I was hearing that voice. And then I felt very warm. Now it was a cold winter sort of, it was March, it was very cold in London, it was winter, no rain, nothing like that, but it was very cold. But I felt all of a sudden very warm. And that's what I remember there. And then things really twisted. So physically, in the reality of the world, what happened is I'd put my I just before this happened, I was thinking, should I post my letter in the letterbox, or shall I go and get the newspaper? And going to get the newspaper meant that I changed angle, and on my body where it was on my right hand side of my body, and I just changed direction slightly. Now, I was thinking this in my head, should I go get the letter, post the letter, or go get the newspaper? And I heard my nan's voice again saying, go and buy the newspaper, which changed my direction. And thankfully, I listened to that inner voice, like that gut feeling like we all have, but sometimes we're like, no, don't want to listen to it. So I listened to it, and thank God I did. So in the 3D reality world, while I did this, I changed direction. The van was driving, I suppose, 40 miles per hour. So I don't know, it's about 80 kilometers. I don't know how you guys do it there, but it was 40 miles per hour on a road he should have been driving 20 miles per hour. Oh. And he went straight through the red lights and went straight into my body. Now,
oh my gosh.
There were 4 or 5 other people crossing at the same time, but yet I get hit by this van. So I get hit on my left-hand side. It throws me across the ground about 10 feet. I land on my right-hand side of the body. So the van continues to drive off. Someone had seen the driver on his phone. He leaves me there. The traffic stops. People have stopped. They're screaming. They were screaming. People standing around. People had called ambulance, police, whatever. That was going on in the 3D world.
Okay. But that's not the world you're in at this moment.
No, I was in a different dimension totally. And I didn't understand that at the time. Thank God, yeah. I was warm. And I remember it being very white, very bright white light, but not harsh on my pupils or my eyes. And I was just there, and around me, I could feel beings around me. We just say them as beings for now.
Okay.
There was like angelic energy as well around me, but I didn't know that at the time that's what it was. It's only now as I work, I understand the difference. So there was a lot of different beings around me, and I remember being there. I wasn't scared, felt very calm, very peaceful, and I remember being shown information. So the way it works when you go into the Akashic records, which I didn't know it was called that at the time, I just thought it was like a giant library, and there was many books on many shelves, and they were going on for miles and miles and miles and miles into the distance, and I was being shown giant scrolls and jars and containers, and they were showing me this information, and they were showing me almost like Harry Potter the movie. They were showing me the book would open, and there was images that came out of the book, and I could see them, and I was like, And I remember it was really important, and I had to pay attention. But remember, I'm this child that never paid attention at school. I'm dyslexic. I never understood anything. I was a daydreamer. I was always looking at the window. So even now, I'm on the other side, and I'm still not paying attention.
Oh my God.
I can't help it. You know, I can't change habit of lifetime. So they give me all this information. I knew it was really important. I was like, it's really important. And you know, like when you bang your head with your hand, go, it's really important. I must remember. Or you tie a knot in something and saying, you've got to remember something. Or you write in biro on the back of your hand, you know, when you go to the shops or something.
Yes.
Of course, I didn't have any of those. I couldn't, you know, whatever. I was supposed to store it and remind myself or remember it. And I remember it was really important. And all I remember is that there was this being that glided past me, didn't see any feet, and I looked down, I was like, but where are your feet? So I got so distracted. That's not my fault, that's their fault. There was too much going on around me.
They can't put all this in front of you and expect you to be fully present. At this moment, are you knowing I am dead, or you're just so immersed in this reality that's not even a concept?
Yeah, no idea. I was accepting. I was like, okay. I didn't even think. I'm just like, yep, I'm being shown this information. I know it's really important. It's like going to the headmaster, waiting outside his office, and you're really, you know, like, what's happened now? And I was like, I couldn't understand, very confused, sort of thing. There was, what are you showing me? Don't understand. Too much information. Okay. It's almost like the architect, you know, you're having a house build, you see an architect and they show the blueprint. Yes. It was a bit like that. And I hadn't got a clue. I was just like,
I don't know what all of this means. Yeah.
No idea at all. So that was going on there. The other part of a different dimension and sense was what was happening was my soul was like, and I didn't know that's what it was called at the time, but somehow I was hovering above my body. And I could see, I didn't know it was my body at the time, and I could see this physical form on the ground in the road. I saw all these people standing around, and I was like, I could feel and sense their fear, or they're feeling scared, or they're feeling nervous, and someone crying. There was somebody who was familiar to me. It was a relative that was looking, and he looked really grey in the face. He looked in shock, and I thought, why is Uncle Peter looking like that? Well, what's going on? He looks really upset. And then I had another flash. I was then taken to the truck driver that was parked up. It was busy road, and of course the road had been cornered off because I apparently was dead in the road, which I didn't know at the time. And you know, I was an inconvenience to his day, basically. He was really annoyed.
So you could go into his consciousness?
Yeah, well,
And you were a mere inconvenience is what you
yeah, I
picked up.
was. I could feel it. I could hear it. He was moaning on his phone to his boss, saying that some silly woman. I mean, he was using blue language at this time, so it was quite abusive.
What a
So,
jerk.
you know, you know.
Just your life. Oh my
And
gosh.
I didn't understand. You know, I still, again, I wasn't understanding that I was moving in and out, and I was seeing all this. I didn't question it. I was just like hearing what he was saying. I could hear on the radio station there was going to be a woman that was being airlifted to hospital. There's an emergency. There's going to be a helicopter landing in the road. I could hear the sirens. I could see a paramedic arriving on his motorbike. You know, he pulled up down the road from me. I saw exactly where he parked. There was a woman that was going to get a towel out of her hairdressers to wrap under my neck, and people were screaming, saying, "Don't touch her, you might break her neck," you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Everyone was screaming, so I could see that. And then
So
it
you're
was like,
holding both realities, or are you popping back and forth?
yes, yes. So it was like it was almost like where your consciousness is aware of, that's where you travel to.
Okay.
So my soul consciousness was showing me, it was the awareness. So
Okay.
I was aware that I was in Akashic Records, which I didn't know what it's called at that time. I was given some information, and when I was given some information, I was being shown. It's a bit like Scrooge, you know, when Christmas
Yes.
Past, the Scrooge the movie. It was I was being shown different things at
Got
different times, different dimensions and stuff.
Okay.
And then there was a point where I could see my partner walking, no hurry, right? You know, I could be dead, but no hurry. I mean, that summed up my 32-year relationship. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Did he stop and maybe get a beer on the way or something?
You know, he might have. Who knows? He could have. It was like get a lazy chair and sit and just watch the world go by. But
Wow.
so I think maybe I'd be fair to him. Look, he might have been in shock. So he was walking, you know, big strides, and I could see his mum running down the road. And then he bent down, and I didn't know I was dead at the time. He bent down, had his hand about to touch my head. And again, I could see this. It was like I could see someone bending over this individual. Again, he didn't know it was my body. But I was like, I recognized him. I recognized his mum. I recognized his uncle. What's he doing? And then he put his hand on my head, which I could see from outside of my body. And directly he put his hand on my head. I could feel into his feelings. And the first thing he said was that, you know, I was expecting everything, you know, like, how am I going to manage without her? Oh, no. It was like, how am I going to look after Rebecca and Nathan? That's our children. And that's all he thought. And I was like, for real? And that's what he was thinking. And then the paramedic arrived, the ambulance arrived, I could hear the sirens. And that's when I was sort of like aware that it was physically me, because I could feel his energy, I could feel his thoughts. And then I realized that's my body. And then I then remember where I was in Akashic Records, it was very white, there was individuals around me, and I remember looking at them and going, what's going on? I can't go. This is me. And I remember saying, what's going to happen? It really sort of gets me still. What's going to happen to Rebecca and Nathan? I mean, Rebecca and Nathan are now 29 and 27, but as a mother, I still feel that they're 5 and 7.
Yeah, well, right. I'm a mother too. Yes.
Right, you get this. So, yeah, so the paramedic came over, they were cutting open my clothes, cut everything off. You know, they had to paddle me, so the electric paddles they had to put on my
They
heart.
had to revive you.
Yeah, exactly it. And when they did that, it was like my body was whizzing around a water slide in like you have in a theme park, the water slides that go around in a spiral. I whizzed back into my body. That's how it felt. Like it was like whoosh. And when I hit my body, I was in so much pain.
Oh, I feel so bad for what that must have felt like.
It was painful because I had broken my foot 7 places. I had ripped my ankle, my foot out my ankle joint. I had also damaged the bones in there and the tendons, the nerve ending. I had broken my kneecap. I had tore my cartilage in my knee because it had twisted off at the speed.
Oh, good Lord.
I'd my hip was fractured. My rib cage was fractured on both sides. As I landed, my sort of hip pelvis, sort of the bone has sort of my muscle part, and it sort of damaged that area. So it was like a giant pumpkin in that area. It was like it severed lots of muscles, and it was bruised, the whole trunk of my body. I hadn't damaged my head, which was good. I hadn't damaged my neck, which was really good.
Yeah.
But I was bleeding internally now in my spleen. So my kidneys were bleeding, my spleen was damaged.
Ruptured. Yeah.
Yeah. So as I was being whizzed off to the hospital, there was moments I was in and out of consciousness, and I could see I was hovering above the ambulance. I could see the number of the ambulance and the siren. When they got me into the crash team in the hospital, there was 3 sets of team members. They were cutting my bottom part of my clothes off, the middle part, the top part. I was naked, and there was no embarrassment because I wasn't connected to my body. I was looking over my body, and I could feel how nervous and worried they were going to lose me. And injections put into my arms and everything, and plaster cast, and then I was put into intensive care unit. When I returned home after a number of weeks, I couldn't walk on my foot. They were going to amputate my foot, and for 2 years I was in a wheelchair. The children were pushing me around. I couldn't walk up the stairs to read my children a bedtime story, which was the hardest thing. Yeah, and that still upsets me today because it was 2 years. And then another 2 years after getting out of the wheelchair, I had to learn to re-walk again with a walking stick. So I was disabled. And the abuse I got for being disabled and parking my car in a disabled bay, because people would say, "You're so young, you cannot be disabled." So anyway, that's another story.
That's quite a story, though.
Yeah. That's
Wow.
one.
Wow. And, when I say quite a story, yes, I mean the whole NDE, but also the experience of people think you're young and not disabled, although they
Yeah.
can't see what you're dealing with internally and to
Yeah.
be on the receiving end of that. How did you begin to assimilate what you experienced in the Akashic records? And as you talked about the angelic beings, help us understand what you learned that feels important for people to understand.
That's a good point. It took a long time. So, as it took a long time for me to process this as a counselor training in science, and then the experience I went through, trying to understand, was this really my mind? Did this really happen? So it took a long time, and I didn't know, as I say, what that actually meant, what was happening, what was Akashic records, what was past lives, what was I being shown,
So
I'd been,
confusing.
yeah, and I'd been going to church before then, and I went to church in my wheelchair, and I was speaking to the vicar at the time, and he said, "Well, we don't really believe that you had this sort of experience." And I was like, "Oh my God."
It's like damaging, super
Yeah,
damaging to hear that.
I gave up hope because it's like, you're trying to understand everything that happens in your everyday life. You're trying to put it into a box or a parcel or a shape or form, some sort of structure, so it helps you. And then, you turn to an individual, and that's what they said. Well, it was fine. I was like, okay, that's not going to stop me.
Good.
So then I started researching information on YouTube. That's what I did. I started listening to Anita Monjarab, I think her name is, where she said about her near-death experience. It's quite well known at the time. And Wayne Dyer, started watching his work, sadly when he passed, but hey. And then I went to the College of Psychic Studies in South Kensington, and I was just a student, and that's all I was at the time. And when I was there learning as a student, a number of very famous, well-known mediums kept on coming up to me and saying, "Oh, you're going to be one day, you're going to work here as a consultant, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that." And they told me so much, and a lot of it's coming true. And it was literally about 10 years afterwards, after being a student and, just wanting to enjoy all that world of the Harry Potter world and metaphysics and enjoying all
Yeah.
that, then I realized that I'm a little bit different for some of the other mediums, and it would be sad to waste my skill set, because I'd had the information from the Akashic records. I'd crossed over a number of times already. Being a physical trance medium, I can feel the individuals. I channel light beings now and everything. And I just thought, it's starting to make me understand why I am here personally. And it gave me a sort of a mission. It made me understand why I was here. And everybody's here for the sole purpose of discovering why they are individually here. So my theory and the work that I've been doing is that as a soul, you're on recycle button, that you come backwards and forwards and you learn things. It's about your soul development, and it's about you learning and growing and not making the same mistakes again and again, but maybe looking at those individual situations in your life and looking at, what can I learn from this? What is this showing me? Instead of I'm not saying there's nothing wrong being in victim mode. We all go in there sometimes, and it's okay, but don't lose yourself in that darkness.
Yeah.
It's about, taking that moment, taking that time to breathe into it and to look at what you do have. All this was happening. I had my children still. They were alive. They had gone through hell and back, having this happen to their mum, and it still today affects them. They told me, but it's also made them compassionate towards other people through their experiences. Having a mum that, even now in my lungs, when they collapsed, my second near-death experience, I have a hidden disability.
Yes.
So it's like, we have to be aware of people, and it's down to those individuals, what's going on in their life, and accommodate those individuals. And so for the work that I do with individuals, I look at your journey and I help the individuals, give them their skills, their tools to help them. I'm a believer in, you help individuals to find their pathway too. It's not about, I want someone to be reliant upon me or totally always seeing a medium or a psychic or whatever. It's about you having that connection with yourself, you having that connection to source, you having that connection to your higher self or your guides, so that you can live the life that you want. And that's what I do now.
Oh, that's just magnificent. It's also a beautiful transition that you've invited into. Is there anything that you can share to our listeners, just maybe even a baby step to connect to their higher self so that they can be empowered to be more aligned with their soul's mission?
Yeah, I love that. Well, I'm going to go, well, you need to start listening to the inner voices, right? And if the inner voices are telling you you're too fat, you're too thin, or whatever it is, and is abusive, forget that inner voice.
Yeah.
That's the old experiences that you've gone through. That's the old beliefs in your old database. And just like, our telephones, they just said that's very old, Anne, my God. Like the mobile phones, the cellular phones, and like the laptops, they often have the updates, and it's about updating yourself. So it's about sitting down with yourself, and when something happens, I always say to my clients, journal, write down, get that inner voice out, write it down, see how it makes sense to you. Because when something's really hassling you, when you've got a problem and it's too much, sometimes we go into that fear mode and it becomes really foggy inside. Yeah. So I suggest writing down, your innermost thoughts. And then while you do this, some people, it's called automatic writing. Some people write things, I don't know where that came from, but it's your inner self, your higher self, sort of connecting to you to help guide you. So you can start by doing that. And I always say, when I say this to my students, unless you are meditating like I told you to, forget it. I can't teach you. The meditation is simply, it's a bit like taking the needle off the record. It pauses you, it stops you, and you go internal.
That metaphor.
Yeah.
I love that metaphor. And so two questions. Yes. One was, with automatic writing, does it matter if you're writing with your hand or typing on a keyboard? Is there any importance to that?
That's a good point. It shouldn't really matter. I'm just old school. I like a pen and a notepad, and I write quite freely when I'm doing that. And also I don't look at the spellings. Being dyslexic, you're not going to look at the spellings anyway.
It never mattered. Yeah.
But the idea is that whatever is free flowing. So if you're the type of person that you know, it's free flowing when you're on the computer and you're tapping away on
Then that's
the
the one
keys
for you.
is absolutely fine.
Okay.
Or writing in your notebook. I mean, what I also do is when I'm out and about, I use my mobile phone and I voice note. So if I'm hearing information and I feel it's important, I'll talk to myself on my phone and then I'll listen back to it. But yeah, to connect to your higher self, it's a great idea to sit with yourself, to write or to type, whatever is the easy way for yourself, which is free
Got
flowing.
it. Got it. And then with someone, and I know so many people feel so intimidated by meditation because,
Yeah.
monkey brain and this and that. What suggestions do you have?
Okay, right, okay. Well, you can imagine, okay? I'm that child at school being told what to do, so this is what I do for my clients. I know, I was one of those people. I was like, my mind's all over the place. What
Yeah.
can I do? So simple steps, okay? I became a mindfulness practitioner, and so I try to encourage this to all people first before you start going into meditation, because boy, it's going to be hard. If you tell someone to stop thinking, they're going to do,
I
I'm
know.
going to think. It's normal,
Yeah.
okay?
Otherwise, if you're asking me not to think, I can't do this. That's not something for
Exactly,
me. Yeah.
exactly. So the tips leading up to that, I say about being mindful. So that means you make yourself a tea or coffee. Whenever you are having a tea or coffee, I want you to sit with that tea and coffee. I want you to romanticize. I want you to have a relationship with your tea and coffee. I want you to feel the heat of the cup. I want you to taste whatever it is that you're drinking. I want you to be in the present moment.
Right.
Whether you are walking down the road and you can feel your feet, that's a form of meditation, is being
That's right.
connected with your feet to the ground. If you hear the wind, allow yourself to sit with the wind. Again, that's a form of meditation. Nature is the best form of meditation. So when you allow yourself to be mindful in the moment, you keep practicing this for a period of time. When you brush your teeth, change hands. There's a lot of research about the neural pathways,
Right.
like changing habits of behavior. There's like Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about this. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this.
Yes.
You change when you change your hand for your brushing your teeth. You're having to actually think now of making a new pathway in your brain.
Yes.
Now, we can always go off into autopilot, and autopilot is a little bit worrying because when we do that, we miss things around us. We
That's
can miss
so
the
right.
signs, the messages from spirit and stuff like that. So by being mindful, you start changing things. And when you do that, you then go to meditation. And I might say to somebody, if you have a monkey mind, which should be more under control when you start doing the mindfulness, what you can do is you walk in meditation. So you're being mindful of where you're walking, you're visually taking in everything you can see. You're coming out of your head about paying your bills, you're coming out of your head about what you're going to do later for dinner or what you're going to do at work. So if you're involved in nature, that helps. And then what I do is I do channeled meditation. So when I'm doing my channeled meditation, it's like there's a frequency in the background. So it's like deep channeling healing from my light beings, light council that comes forward. And even music, if you listen to a tune and allow yourself to go into some music, there's research into classical music or whatever it fills your heart with joy. Tune into that distracts your brain. Start training your brain to come out of the 3D world that we live in, and that will help.
Yes. That was some of the best advice I've ever heard because it
You're
is
welcome.
so practical. Yes. Thank you so much. It's that sustained present moment awareness, but it's breaking it's funny.
Yes.
My husband and I say to my son, because we get in the habit of lecturing, we're like a broken record, but he's never seen a record. He has no idea what that means, right? But it's taking the needle off the record and getting off of that 3D frequency
Yeah.
so that you can be available.
Yeah. It's funny you said record. I think they're called vinyls now. They're called vinyl players, not record players anymore. So I love
I don't
that.
even know what we're talking about.
I'm
We're
like,
such
what the
different-
hell? I saw that in the shop and I was like, a vinyl player? I've got to go and have a little look. And I was like, that's a record player, for
record.
God's sake. Fancy giving it a new name. No,
It's so much more hip. Yes.
yeah,
Oh my
it's
gosh.
interesting what you were saying about your son because look, I'm not anti going on the computer. I'm not anti Instagram. I'm not anti any of that at all. But what's happened is some of the research I've been doing, because obviously I've trained with the brain in NLP and hypnotherapy, that I do everything and whatever. when there's this instant gratification that now that the children over the last 20 years have had this, well, since the mobile phone's been around, it's the instant gratification that there's no waiting for anything anymore. We get everything just when we want it and whatever, and there's no sort of excitement to anything anymore. And there's this also what goes on Instagram. We were saying this just before we went live. You were saying about, oh, I was saying about, you know, sometimes there's filters on things, and we don't tune into the real reality of the world, and that affects people. It affects everybody, whatever age you are. But it's like when we look at the real world, we have to keep coming back to the moment. You know, all those things are actually happening, and being present, and not losing ourselves in somebody else's 3D reality as such, what we think might be. Like on Instagram, they're showing us the best sides, and there are lots of people that are having a fantastic time, we know, but it's like you can lose yourself in their reality, and then you step out of your own reality because it might feel comforting for a short time, but really it should be the work doing on yourself, because it's your soul journey right here, right now.
Right. In terms of soul journeys, and everyone has to, and of course they can work with you, and I'll be asking shortly how people can get in contact with you, but I love it's like you're teaching them how to fish rather than just giving them the fish. Thematically, do you see certain themes repeated in terms of people here right now with some missions, whether it's generosity or compassion or forgiveness or anything like that?
I think what's happening right now, which I'm finding and working with a lot of students and clients around the world, is this. It's great that people are becoming aware of, I hate even using the word spirituality because of what we might think of it. But what it is for me is that it's this whole feeling of people are looking at the woo-woo side of the world and thinking that's going to solve everything. You have to be also practical. You have to work with it as well. It's not just imagining that, you know, if I go and meditate, and if I believe there are guides, or if I believe there's angels or whatever, it's going to solve my world, without you doing the work as well on yourself. Now, a lot of people are coming to me where they say they've had past life experiences, or they say they've met a twin flame, or they've met a soulmate. When some people come to me and they say, oh, I met a soulmate, so this means I have to stay with this person for the rest of my life. Like, no, actually, you might be meeting your soulmate, but soulmates are meant to come in to stimulate something that's happening within you, to help you with your growth, to move on. And then you take it as that. So I know this might sound selfish. I did something on Instagram the other day, actually. I was talking about self-preservation. It's not being selfish. It's the self-preservation is about looking at your own journey and being aware that those individuals that are in your life, in your soul pod, which is your family connections, your souls. I mean, the reason why they come in, I've done this, I did something on YouTube about this. The reason that your soul pods, so if you have a friend that mirrors something or reflects something back to you in conversation and you're not happy with it, you can say, I've had enough of that friend, and you walk away from that friend. Not as easy as that, but to some degree. But if it's a family member, your mother, your father, or a sibling, it's very hard to walk away. So that's why families, especially now that's coming up, I'm seeing that people having conversations, or there's friction happening in their families, because you cannot escape that problem, because there is something that needs to be addressed in your own soul. There is something that you came back here for, that you needed to learn from that particular member of family. So you're not going to be able to move away from that. So what I am finding right now is a lot of people are bringing up the fact of, yes, they think that they may have been with their mother in a past life, that was their sister, whatever. And I help them to follow it back. So ancestrally, we look at the bloodline to see what's going on. You know, I've had individuals where there's been horrific things going on within the family, and it repeats itself. The individual sits in front of me. I don't, you know, they don't need to tell me anything. I can feel it going on inside their energy of their body. And it also might go back to a past life or a relationship with an individual. So what I am finding right now is that I think what's happened on the planet with, you know, we had that massive pandemic. It's affected everyone on the globe. Since having that, it's making people look at how they want to live their life. They're questioning how or what they do in their day. They're questioning, do I want the same job day in, day out? Do I want to be in the same relationship day in, day out? It's about, as I say, someone said to me, well, it's being selfish. It's not, it's self-preservation. So at the moment on the planet, leading after the pandemic, people are now looking at about their work, their lifestyle, and realizing life's just too short. It can just change just like that.
Yes. Yes. The word that comes up for me is that alignment,
Yes.
that they're really paying attention.
Yes.
And it's alignment with what they're here to learn, experience, and some, not only lessons, but joy and the expression of the gifts that they're here to share.
Yeah, and it's really by that alignment, what really helps is when you're really your authentic self, by when you're doing something because you want to do it, not because that you think that you're going to be pleasing somebody else, that they're going to love you more, or they're going to listen to you more if you're somebody else, or, you know, if you're an influencer and you're maybe on Instagram or whatever, and you're not really living because you just want to show your audience what you think they want to see.
Yeah.
People can feel and see that. So that authenticity of being who you really are, you know, by going out how you want to look like, you know, there's a lot of celebrities aren't wearing the makeup now if they don't want to wear makeup. They want to be themselves now. Yeah. That's brilliant. Just be yourself.
Healing. It's healing for the rest of us to be like, God, we can just be human.
Yeah.
Don't have to be so perfect or whatever that ideal is.
That's right.
Time goes by so very, very quickly. I could listen to you for so long. I have such brilliant guests. I feel like I say it all the time, but it's so true with every one of them, yourself included. Yes, this was extraordinary. How do people learn more about you, get in contact with you, work with you?
Okay, lovely. Thank you. So what happened was I was channeled the information about Odyssey, the platform. So it's a platform, a website that we've created that there are a number of practitioners. So what I have found over the years that it's to be more soulful or more in tune with your soul. It's about looking at where there are blockages, to look at your soul journey. And some people may need some assistance, and that's absolutely fine. I think that's all part of it. So we have therapists and we have, you know, coaches that help you to look at where you are on your journey. And I'm included in that, where we really look at the soul. What is it that you're looking for? How can we help you? And we then give you the tools. So there are classes there, there's courses there, there's free workshops, there's lots of information on our YouTube channel as well. So they can make that initial step by going to our website, which is www.odysseytheplatform.com, where they can have a look at what the events are that are on at the moment, and then also look at any workshops or classes. I have also my own website, which is www.annebayford.com, where they can find me directly. And we have a YouTube channel, Odyssey the Platform. I have a YouTube channel, Anne Bayford, and there's the Soul Pod Quest podcast that we have as well. So there's numerous ways of reaching out and contacting me, where you'll find our emails there and everything else that you might need.
Oh my gosh, I am now a subscriber officially. I need to go and that sounds extraordinary. You have so much to teach, and I'm just incredibly grateful that you chose and said yes to spending time with us.
Thank you. It's been absolutely lovely meeting you today. I feel so connected. It's lovely.
I do too. Thank you. Thank you so much.
How I Made It Through is produced and distributed by EIQ Media, LLC. Elevate your emotional IQ with podcasts and content focused on overcoming adversity, leadership, mental health, entrepreneurship, spiritually transformative experiences, and more.